Yeah, I do want to hear. I mean, there are lots of things I want to hear more because this is really interesting. But you mentioned, of course, the folklore aspect of it. What about when it comes to queer storytelling? Has that become easier, or is it? I mean, even in Passiflora at the very beginning, and I promise I would be light on spoilers, but in the very beginning, you do. There's a scene where you see like, oh, there's like prejudice.
Yeah.
Like you see reaction to that. So obviously, it's not gone. Obviously, it is a very real world factor and issue. But do you think it has become somewhat easier, or maybe it's just really this process that you mentioned of, no, this is a story I need to tell. Also because of the development cycle of so many productions, right? Um, what is so far? It's been 3 years since the very inception of Passiflora.
Yes. Yeah.
So 3 years. If you're going to tell a story that goes through this 3 year cycle, 4 year cycle, it needs to be a story that we're really confident in, that we truly believe in. So that's also something I wanted to hear from you, as in, how do you feel about this? Is this something that you believe is becoming easier? Maybe it's not even becoming easier in society, but you feel that it's easier because of your experiences or just the experience you developed with specifically Passiflora. How do you feel about that?
I don't feel like it's easier, but it's definitely less complicated. Mainly because we are taking the chairs, right? In the sense, like, we are, most of us are in those big decision making rooms. So it's not that it's easier, but it's definitely less complicated because there is an active intention of finding those stories and finding these new voices and queer voices specifically. Um, but it's hard because film is hard, regardless. So finding the right people, finding funding, all of that, it will always be hard because it is the nature of the business. Um, but I do see that there is an active search for those type of stories, and that is what really motivates me because I do understand the competitive aspect of the industry, but knowing that there's someone out there who is looking for these type of stories really what makes you going. And also something that also makes me going is just the queer community here in Vancouver specifically. I was very, very blessed and fortunate to connect with them very early on when I moved here. And most of them, they just want to see themselves on screen or be represented in some sort of way. So they are also hungry to collaborate and help in any way, shape, or form. So it goes back to what I said at the beginning. Like, it's not that it's easier, but it's a little bit less complicated because you can definitely find the right people to help you out, and hopefully things are gonna get made and see the big screen and connect with other people and all of that. So I do. I'm not naturally a positive person, but when it comes to this, I'm a little bit more positive because I do see like these people that are around us. So we can definitely count on them and to make things move forward. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think, again, just the fact that it's not about hiding the identity anymore. It's about really being open about it and saying, yes, this is my heritage. This is who I am. This is my identity. I think that's extremely powerful. And you mentioned magical realism, and then you also mentioned the queer community here in Vancouver. And I think what you did to fund Passiflora is magical realism. You really managed to, not only because it's a Crazy Eight movie, you had to put it all together in 8 days, right? But could you also tell a little about, share a little about this process of the fundraising that you went through and how that's also connected, not just with the queer community that we see in the story, in the film, but also backstage in terms of making it happen?
So, uh, because it's a Crazy Eight film, you only receive a limited amount of money, and then you have to find the rest, right? Um, so as soon as we got the okay that we got selected and we made the top six for Crazy Eights that year, we just started reaching out to like all of our networks and see like who would be interested in supporting these type of stories. And I am very connected with the drag community here in Vancouver, so I just reached out to a bunch of them. We do have a bunch of the drag performers in the film, and I reach out to them. And usually, the way a drag show goes is you have the opening number and spotlighters, which is usually like new up and coming performers, and then the main headliner of the night. And usually, the last number of the night is a crowdfunding, or like they're collecting funds to an institution or someone who's going through a hard time. And I just reach out to these performers and like, hey, would you be able, like on your Tuesday night show, for the last number, instead of donating to something else, like, can you donate to my film? And then I would go and talk to this person, and maybe sometimes I would go and talk on the show, at the show, on stage, to see if more people would be able to help us, even just like sharing a connection with someone who would be able to help. So we did that for the drag shows on Davie Street. And a year before we shot Pasta Flora, we had a Brazilian feature at VIF, and the Vancouver Latin American Cultural Center brought the director. And then I met them and we talked, and then that kind of became some sort of like a relationship. So I reached out to them. They were able to help us as well, but they were also able to help me to get in contact with the Brazilian consulate. So at one point was me just having a meeting with the Brazilian General Consul in Vancouver, which to me was very official and very scary because I'm not a full adult. I'm just a farm person. And we had this meeting. It was great, and they were super interested in helping us. So a lot of the funding for the film came from just people that we knew, and they were just interested in helping us because they saw something in the story or saw something in the team. And yeah, I'm glad you said that it is magical realism because now I like that. I'm gonna take that. Yeah, I'm gonna steal that from you. Um, yeah, it was just like cold emails, cold calls, like showing up. I just showed up on the Brazilian calls, like, hey, I need a meeting, and then they were able to book the meeting with me. So that whole experience showed me that I'm a lot more resilient than I thought. And I was actually able to just show up and like, hey, I need your help. Are you able to help? No, okay, thank you for your time. And I'm gonna look for someone else. Know what I mean? Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's magical realism on screen and off screen, right? That's how you make it happen. And speaking of that, I mean, obviously a lot of people were part of this fundraising process because they saw your story, they believed in it, and they really wanted to see it come to fruition. Now that it's going to festivals and it's out there, how has the reaction been, or what have you learned from this experience that you want to take on to your next productions?
Uh, it's very funny because even though it is a coming of age story, I never imagined that a lot of young people would connect with the story. And I say this because both myself and my co-writer Carolyn, of course, we used a lot of our high school experiences as a starting point for the film. But for some reason, we just thought it would. We used to say that it was a second coming of age, second queer adolescence. Sorry, second queer adolescence type of film where you're like in your early adulthood and you realize about your sexuality, and then you go and you go explore that. But then, especially when we had this screening in Toronto where we had a bunch of high schoolers, and Gen Z is crazy because they are a lot more comfortable with their gender and sexuality than what millennials are. And they just reach out to us at the end. And to me, the fact that we are touching high schoolers, which high school was like an awful time for me. Um, it's crazy because I truly never thought about it. So probably this is the biggest take that I can take from this whole festival run. Is just like how this story is connected with young people because I never thought that I would be connected with young people. I thought it would be just like okay, adult time, you know. So it's been a good experience. It's one of those things in film where you think you're going one way and then all of a sudden the work kind of takes you somewhere else. But it's an interesting experience. I'm very grateful that I'm able to connect with these young folks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear you say young because I'm like, I watched the film. I think everyone in there is young. But I mean, I understand it. I mean, especially when you compare it to like the adolescence phase, right? So it's like, who are the teenagers that are connecting with this story and the next generations that are connecting with that story? And honestly, I think, again, that's why it's a timeless story because it is about the process of finding your identity and developing the self-love. So when I saw that, I'm like, I think this can connect with anyone, right? Especially with people who are going through this sort of like a growing pain process, right? And speaking as well, you mentioned like young audiences. One thing that I just have to say that I loved is I love music videos. So I just loved how you sync the music with even when you're showing the title of the movie. And the soundtrack. I gotta get a hold of the soundtrack with you. I gotta listen to it. So I thought it's original and that's amazing again. So it's really just showing how you're able to get all of these people together, create original content, and original content that speaks to this story that you want to share. Now, I'm curious to see if the audience has any questions. Does anyone have any particular? A comment. Okay. Let me bring you the mic then.
No, I'm always interested because um, there are some more Latin American filmmakers in Canada. When we started the festival, there were like zero. We only had like two Latin Canadian. Now we have more and more. And when I see your film, I think, and I think your other film too is, no, I think this film. This film is when I see it very Vancouverite, very Canadian in a way. Um, how do you feel about your style of making movies now? If you feel more um, you feel more like you are more in the Canadian style, in the Brazilian style. Obviously, your own style because films are from filmmakers, but you can always tell the feel. I see a lot of Latin American films, but yours, you are from Latin America, but you've been here for a while. But I felt it very Vancouverite in a way. Um, I don't know, something about that.
Yeah, that's definitely the next step for the next film. I think I want to try and find the middle ground between the two. I think everything that I was doing before moving here was very Latin American inspired, and like the language and everything. And I think the other film that you saw, I remember everything was kind of leaning towards that a little bit more. But with Pastor I think we went a completely different direction. I'm trying to find the middle ground between the two. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but I'm interested in mixing these two languages and these two ways of making film. Um, Especially because it is my objective to stay in North America. So I think in some sort of way I do have to lean a little bit back to the other style of filmmaking. Yeah, but that's a little bit of like you throw something in the air and you hope it catches. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah, I don't know. This is for definitely for the next one that I'm writing right now. I'm trying to find this middle ground, this middle point, this sweet spot between the two languages to see where my voice really is. This is the thing with being creative. You're always trying to find your voice, and I don't think this search will ever end. So let's talk again in 10 years. Yeah. Or maybe next year. Yeah, if I have another film made. Yeah. Yeah.